Today I was just feeling like I'd just be sharing with my family. And it seems like I need to share about the old days. That's kind of what came to me. So I hope you don't mind if you all know some of these old stories. But anyway, all the pictures that I'm showing are ones that I have taken myself. So they shouldn't be ones that you've seen before, hopefully. Oh my gosh, what happened? Okay. Did it disconnect?
Victoria.
You have to click the computer. Go ahead and click the computer. Remember where we Oh, okay.
Hold on. It said mute soon. Where's the little black thing for the television? Let's try this. Maybe you gotta sit next to her.
Yeah, I can move.
Here, you can sit.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it
Back
out.
here.
We're playing musical chairs. Doing a little side dance. Okay, did you get it going?
It's a high-tech guy.
You might want to take out the cable and put it back in or something.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
pull it out of the computer.
Oh, goodness. All right. Andrew Debbie would give talks, and then every night Swami would give us talk. And we got to have 3 meals with Swami, and I will never forget this because, you know, during a lot of the time back in the 70s, Swami talked a lot about sealing on desires and limiting your desires and limiting your relationships and family ties and everything. And I really took that to heart. And so here we are, you know, we come in with all, and we're all in all these lines, and the college boys go around and give us, you know, food. And then Swami eats for like 2 seconds, and then he gets up and he walks around. And then he keeps telling him to come around and feed us. So, I mean, he kept feeding us and feeding us and feeding us. And I was like, Swami, you tell us to have sealing on desires, you know, and you're just like piling the food on, and we're just like stuffed. And the person sitting next to me was Lila Youngs, and, you know, she's a little robust. And I remember just being shocked because he came up to her and he said, eat more. And I just couldn't compute it. So it took me many years to understand that, you know, when the Lord feeds you food, it isn't food. It's you know, it's prasad, and it's manna from heaven. It's a divine, you know, he's giving you himself. It's a symbolic gesture of him feeding himself to you. And so, of course, you know, he wants you to eat as much as you can because it's not really food that you're eating. So I didn't understand that at the time, but it was, you know, such grace to be able to be fed by him, and then, you know, have him just keep feeding you until you couldn't stand it. So one day we got wind that he was going to come and visit us, but we really couldn't believe that he would actually come to our rooms, and he did. So this is a picture that I took of him. He came into each of our rooms, and just like a dad wanting to check on his daughters, you know, is everybody okay? And, you know, so when he came into the room that I was in, you know, we all swarmed around him like bees. And, you know, most everybody's taller than Swami, and And it was like nobody really knew what to say because we couldn't believe he was really there, and he was checking to see if, we were keeping everything tidy and if we had everything we needed. It was very, very sweet. And in some of the other rooms, I know some of the ladies talked to them about their health, and one woman who had cancer, Swami said that he would take care of her. And then on the men's side, there was a gentleman who had throat cancer, and Swami touched him on the throat and said that he would take care of him. And I think he spent more time in our rooms than he did with the men, but that was such a special moment to have him actually come into, especially with foreign ladies, to come into our rooms. We didn't really believe that he would do it, but he did. And then, every night he would give these discourses, and it was just amazing. And most of the time he talked about Krishna. So I want to read you, this is a book by Susie Salguero. It's called When God Came Walking. She just finished it. And it's about her time from 78 to 80 living in India with Swami. And her description of the discourses and the time there is so amazing. I just wanted to read a little bit out of her book because the way she describes it is so unbelievable. So, this one part, she's talking about how when he's sitting up at his desk and he's listening to somebody else talk, he'd be playing with the flowers. For discourse, he stood behind the satin-covered table with his silver water tumbler and microphone. There were always a few flowers or a small wreath which someone had placed there. He usually ignored the fresh blossoms, but sometimes he fiddled with them. One night I began to focus on his hands and the flowers. His fingers caressed them, patted them, cupped them, or held them under his hands like eggs under a hen. I saw it as a symbol of the tender care we were all receiving when first with Swami. The next night, those nimble fingers picked the flowers apart. He made piles of disassembled blossoms. Yes, yes, Lord, tear me to pieces and make me new. Believe it or not, the next night he reassembled the flowers. He formed a circle, carefully placing a red one amongst the white, reminding me of the things in me that were Rajasic, and then the pure center. The next night I was wearing his new green teacher's sari. The only time he touched the flowers was to pick one, a white donut-sized wreath of tight white buds, and use as an illustration while he was teaching about teaching. He explained that every mother was a Balvika's teacher, so I too must qualify. He made this very clear in his talks. Okay, I want to go over to this other part where he, one morning, we saw an entirely different Swami. We saw a mellow Swami, mellow in a pumpkin yellow robe, his golden brown face a buttercup. Interrupting a morning lecturer, Swami unexpectedly entered the auditorium. So he would give these discourses in the auditorium at the Vrindavan campus, which, we're sitting there. It was a very modern. In fact, he had just inaugurated the auditorium. He had just opened it for the summer course. Like a chum, he was sort of laughing at us. He leaned up against the wall, his head back on the silence sign, very casual. He was just hanging out with us for a while. And when the bell rang for coffee break, instead of all of us stampeding out to scramble around the coffee urn outside the door, we sat spellbound. He laughed with whimsical eyes and flaring nostrils. He gestured go ahead, go out and get your coffee. What's holding you back? And of course we stayed put, grinning sheepishly at Mother Person who was teasing us. When he left, the glow stayed on. The evening of June 15th, before Swami spoke, an 88-year-old monk with shaved head wrapped in orange cloth of a renunciate stood next to him and preached in Telugu with no translator. Swami Karanananda was a celibate monk dedicated to a lifetime of housing orphans and single mothers. Apparently, he said a few indiscreet things and would not stop at a gesture from his boss. Swami covered his mouth and giggled. As the man spoke, Swami slapped himself on the forehead, gesturing frustration at the man's blunder. Don't use those words, Swami protested in Telugu, laughing. But the fellow good-naturedly continued. Finally, Swami put his head down on his arms on the table and laughed and laughed. His face was covered and his whole body shook. It was so infectious, we all laughed with him, and the whole auditorium was filled with mirth. He subsided, then began again, slapping both of his thighs and laughing exasperation, throwing his head back in laughter, wiping away tears of laughter, delight bouncing around the room. Finally calmed and ready to begin his discourse, Swami thought again of the yogi's words and again gave out a quick chuckle before he cleared his throat to begin the speech. When he spoke, it was short, but who cared? Thanks to the shameless old guy, we were totally entertained with deep, satisfying darshan. I want to talk about this one thing that he said because I thought it was really beautiful. Well, she talks about this one night, Maynard Ferguson, I'm sure you probably all have heard of him, a very, very famous trumpeter, and he lived in Ojai, so he came to play for Swami one night. And he plays from the sole, from his feet all the way to from the tip of his toes, he puts his whole heart and soul into his playing. And, when he's playing for Swami, he's just, I've never seen anybody so immersed in the music, when his trumpet is blaring and he's just totally into it. So I've seen him play for Swami after this, but this particular time, it was just beyond belief. So Swami gets up, and with the same kind of power that Maynard was putting into his trumpet, Swami stands up and stands next to him, and I've never seen, I'm going to have to put I can't put it down. Anyway, I have to show you what he did. The Swami's standing there, and with his full arms, he's going like this, around and around and around, and he's going around, full arm, like this. And it's going faster and faster and faster, and suddenly, there's this sound, this whoosh, and this huge mala drops out of his hand. I'd never seen it. It was huge mala, like this big. And then, with the same power, he throws it at Maynard and throws it around. It was such a dramatic evening, He throws it around Maynard, and Maynard is like, the power of him throwing that thing that he's just manifested on him. And then he just backs up. He can't even stand up. He's so overcome with power, and he falls on his knee. The whole thing was just, because Swami was just so overcome with, his playing, and it was just a magnificent moment. Just magnificent. So anyway, I want to read this part about the discourse that he reads, because it's really beautiful. Well, I marked too many places, but the next night, the Lord gave a long, serious discourse on the spiritual path of devotion to God and how we as devotees should be behaving. He described three types of devotees. First, Krishna's Radha and Prahlada of another Hindu fable were two examples of the kitten devotee, totally reliant upon God. These were people who, because of past spiritual births and God's grace, were born completely surrendered to Him and having Him ever on their mind. These people were not even involved with the Four Noble Aims of mankind: prosperity, righteousness, work, and liberation, because of ego. The second type of devotion did deal with the Four Noble Aims, but was involved in wealth only for doing righteous acts and work only towards liberation. He said the third type of devotee was always crying, "Baba, Baba," while misbehaving, implying that this referred to us. He clarified that we could not have a vision of God until we removed from our hearts the mire of hate, greed, selfishness, intrinsic of our habitual altar worship and constant repetition of God's name with prayer beads. He said that every minute of the day needed to be performed for God. Every act throughout the day had to be loving and kind. And we did not need to look at Swami's picture on our altar because Swami was inside us. You and I are one, he said in English so sweetly, and my heart stopped. I want to read this other part here where he talks about this part. The closing valedictory ceremony, only his students and we foreign observers in identical saris, amber with red and black border prints, which I'll show you in a minute, sat in a closed, intimate session with Satya Sai. First he came down to the front of the auditorium to hand out certificates and vibhuti and allow Padnamaskar to each student who passed the exam. Robert from Ojai and Therese from Ojai were among them. After the 5 weeks of evening lectures on this commencement day, Swami spoke to us in the morning, informally. Knowing that we were loath to leave and yearned to hear his voice, he mounted the stage and asked, well, what should I talk about? From the audience, Kasturi stood and made a request. So the Lord began. Swami, who until now seemed never to say I, spoke for an hour and a half about himself. It was a gift. He gave himself to us. Everyone in that hall was teary-eyed. He spoke of Sai as a 7-year-old. When some children and teachers were mean and cruel to him, he always tried to give trouble to no one, to get no one in trouble. He explained that he went through all that to set an example for his students. He spoke in first person, talking about his childhood leelas, saying, I did this and I did that. Finally, he told us that he broke all ties with his family at age 10. Unlike other avatars, Rama had Sita, Krishna was connected with the Pandavas, but Sai had no connections with anyone. My family is only my devotees. My friends are only my devotees. I belong to you. For the Sai incarnation, there are no personal commitments, no family relations, not even the smallest. There is not one single thing, he whispered, I exist for you. You see the college boys following me from place to place? That is all they do. I live alone. So he went on to talk about how he cleans, his own things. He does his own food. Devotees bring me food, and that's all I eat, is the things the devotees bring to me. Of all the things I eat, I like most the ragi ball. I live a very simple life from the beginning. You may say that I do not belong to you, but I will never say that you do not belong to me. There is no one in this world who does not belong to me. Some individuals who do not recognize this truth say, I do not need Sai Baba. They may say they do not need Sai Baba in that form, but surely they need someone or another. In whatever form it may be, they need me. So you must all recognize this truth. Anyway, so she goes on to it's just a beautiful way she describes it. And I wanted to share that. Oops, now I lost it, huh? Okay, so these are the saris that he gave us, and that was a whole other thing where he got us in rows, and he did this whole leela where he brought these different colored ones, and then he went down the rows and gave them out, and then he said, no, these aren't right. So then he went and collected them all again, and he passed out different saris, and so it was a whole beautiful little leela that he did with us. But so we had this whole procession with Gita, and so Gita, and these are the bhajan singers, and Gita led the procession. And I mean, I'd never been to one of these big hooplas with Swami, And so then Swami comes in this sun chariot, and this was like, I'd never seen anything like this before. It was utterly amazing, and I think the governor of Karnataka was there. And
That's
it's like this
Krishna's
big,
birthday?
huge, what?
Krishna's birthday.
No, this was the valedictory ending
Oh,
of
okay.
summer course.
Summer course.
So he put on this great big huge hoopla. So, oops. And then he had us take his picture with us. And this is Susie Salguero. She's the one that wrote this book. And there are a lot of people that you'll recognize there. Let's see. I am right. Krita Sherman is right there. There's Barbara Bazzani. And I'm right there. There's Robert Baskin. Let's
Where are the Reinhardt boys?
I'm
There's two
not
of them there.
sure. There's Bob Bazzani. And anyway, there's Therese from Ohio. Anyway, so that was one of the pictures that he took with us. He took a couple pictures. That's me, and some of you might know Linda Carroll. Korsky Carroll. She lives in San Diego. Anyway, so then so then Swami got buses for us to take to Puda Party, and so he was like a dad. He came out and stood on, this is like a little stage, and he stood and waited for the buses, and he got very impatient because the buses were get late, and so we were just hanging out with Swami while he was there standing on the stage, and he was talking to some people. And then the buses came, and you know, he put us all on the bus and gave everybody oranges, and then he waved goodbye to all of us on the bus. It was just so sweet. And most of us had never been to Puda Party, so this was our first chance to go to Puda Party. This is a picture from a wedding that was at Vrindavan. It was after the summer course, actually. But I'm not going to get into that whole story. That would take too much. What the Puda Party was like, and I mean,
Dirt road.
Yep.
dirt and just barely paved, like there. So it was very bumpy riding in the. I'm sure a lot of you remember that. Those of us that. Bernice, you
The water
remember
has
that.
made a lot of difference.
Hasn't it?
Now that they brought the water down south, it's all green in there now.
Yeah, it's just totally different. But sometimes when I'm on the new road, I can look over and I can see, you can see some of these posts that are still there, but they're like high up on these hills, you know. It was kind of almost a treacherous road back in those days.
Were there a lot of chuck holes in the dirt roads?
Oh yeah, it was like going on rocks, so, you know, it was
Okay.
just really crazy bumpy road. So Swami made it, you know, very hard to get to him. But at least it beat going in the bullock carts like the early.
Right.
Okay, this is a picture of Ishwarama's birthplace. That Ishwarama was his mom. And this is an actual picture of the well. You all know the story of
The blue light.
the blue light that entered her,
Ishwarama.
who, you know, was the Immaculate Conception of Swami at this, and that's the actual well. And this is Swami's elementary school in Bukapatna. So that's the school where he went to school. And this is the actual classroom that he was in. I mean, not now, this is a different group of people actually, but this was the actual room where he had his classes. And then this is the temple where this was like across from the school, and this is where he would go with his friends, you know, at lunchtime or after school, and they'd do bhajans in the temple and stuff. And then you remember, this is what Ganesh looked like back in those days. So different. So, this was, I lived there from 81 to 83, and this is just such a wonderful time there, the sand days. And these were pillars that had Swami's sayings on them. And one time Swami let us paint these in the Punachandra, and it took us like 2 or 3 weeks. And he would come and visit us painting these posts, and come and visit us in the Punachandra while we were painting them. This was the first SSCHB International Conference in 1981, and this was in the sheds back in the back, and that's where they were really first started talking about the values and the importance of teaching the children values. And one of my fondest memories is one day Swami he talked about meditation as being very important to teach the children and for us to do ourselves. So he sat down in his chair, and so he told us all to meditate. And of course, we're all like, okay, we're trying to meditate while we're peeking through our eyes to see what he's doing. But he was leaning back in his chair, like he had this chair that leaned way back, and he was closing his eyes, pretending to meditate. And so I was trying to be good, but I just wanted to look at him. But it's such a dear moment, to be meditating with him. And he's faking meditating, for us.
I remember that very well. I was there.
Were you there too in 81?
Yes.
Bernice, I'm sorry. I don't remember seeing you in that picture.
I sang to him. I sang to him that day. The valedictories, there were 7 of us, and they put the mic in front of me, and the other girls didn't have their words in front. I was the only one singing.
What did you say?
What did you sing?
You came with the clarion call to. You answered the clarion call to save mankind from deep downfall. Oh shoot! You know who wrote that? We wrote it the night before we sang. It was Dixit who did the music for Shirley, the film Shirley. They said it was so much fun to sit there and watch him write this song. And they sang it to Swami the next day.
Okay, so anyway, this next picture, the birds. I just wanted to talk a little bit about back in those days, the sand days. Before Swami would come out, the birds would go up in the sky and do this tremendous, like, orchestra dance.
Yeah.
All these different birds would swarm above the darshan area, and they would just caw and whatever they were doing, and
What kind of birds?
all different kinds of birds, and it was just absolutely could be. What they would do is they were announcing that he was going to come, and then the minute the door just like that, they would go and be totally silent and sit in the trees and sit up there and not a peep. But it was every night before darshan they would do this, and it was like they were announcing the arrival of the Lord. It was so profound. Do you remember that?
I remember every night. It was beautiful. I loved it. Just loved it.
So, another thing these were pictures that I took, and I guess they don't show too well on the TV, but I just love these pictures of Swami because it was that, can I make it bigger? Just that silence of him, walking across the sand, and, it's just so beautiful. But one of the things I remember is the lizards who would come out for darshan. They would run across the sand, and they'd put their heads up waiting for him to come, and then they would bow in reverence to him. And I remember one time Gita came storming into the darshan area. This was on the sand days. Mm-hmm. And her caretaker was not with her. And she kind of came in unexpectedly, and she was like full bore running, and we were all like this. And Swami was on the men's side, and he was walking towards, over towards the ladies' side on this, this side of the flowers there. And she just pranamed. She just got down on her knees and put her head down. And nobody was there telling her to do it. She just did it automatically. And it was so, talk about a tearjerker. We were all just so stunned, because, she just loved him that much. And with, the other, like the birds and the lizards coming to the darshan, it just shows you the, his divinity, and everything and everyone paid homage to him, That's what the meditation tree looked like in 1978. And I used to love this was when I lived there, 81 to 83. I used to climb up here, and over here on the hill, that was before there were any buildings or anything, I used to like to go and sit on those big rocks like that, but there were a bunch over there. And I would do the Gayatri, and I swear it's not my imagination, but the sun would start to be coming up, and I would feel like the sun was responding to my Gayatri, because it would I could feel the warmth on my face, and the warmth touch me in different places, and I'd open my eyes and it would kind of sparkle at me, and I really felt that the sun was responding to the Gayatri. It was such a beautiful time, and every day I loved to go up there and do that, because I felt like, I was really communing with the sun. And so again, I was taking pictures. I hope I'm just bringing back memories for those of you that remember this, but I love the sand days, because Swami would walk by, and sometimes he would leave very deep footprints, and we'd all scoop up his sand. Or sometimes he'd walk by and there'd be no footprints at all. It's and then sometimes he'd walk by, and then you'd see the swish of his robe and the sand that he'd leave, And it was just so, so, so beautiful to see that. So this one day, this is when I had lived there for a while. And, Mrs. Mataji was the person in charge, and she was kind of like a sergeant. And, once you were seated, kind of, yeah.
She was.
You don't dare say a peep or get out of your stuff. So if Swami walked by there, he would cut his feet. And I was like, so I prayed to Swami. The only time I ever prayed, Swami, don't come near me. Swami, go away. Swami, don't come over here, because, So, so sure enough, he comes walking along, and I'm like, Swami. And he makes this big U around us, and I'm like, thank you, Swami. Doesn't come near us, and then comes back and continues on down. And then the minute he goes in the building, I was like, I was going to get up and go run and tell somebody. This woman, grabs the sand and grabs everything, and just, she was gone, just like that. It was such a weird experience to experience somebody wanting to hurt Swami like that, and she's sitting right next to me, and I'm having to. Anyway, he answered my prayer, but it was, of course he knew the whole thing was going on the whole time, but anyway, it was really a scary moment. So,